Hello, everyone. So far, I feel like we've had a decent quarter. I've continued to uphold the amount of profit I expect from my channel, which is exactly no money. This is good. This is good. This is above what I was aiming for. Believe it or not, I was originally aiming to just make no videos. But in all seriousness, speaking of money and quarters, we are here to speak about Austhay! Yes, the divinity of merchants, the divinity of copper. By God, the baseline of all things, the bedrock of the economy. And if we don't have the economy, then we have nothing. I really like Austhay as a god, just because it's such a simple concept, but it's so necessary for any setting. Like even if you're gonna do like a prehistoric setting, you need a divinity of trade. Like the cavemen, they're like, ooh, baga baga, ooh, baga baga, bringing their like gifts and stuff. They're doing some form of trade. Even if it's not like commerce, even if it's more of a communal gift exchange thing, and they still run into other tribes, and they're not always going to be running up on them. That's why trade is so important, because you can't, even if you have a strong military, you don't want your society just running up on people. You're going to run out of resources quick. It's not going to be fun for your citizens. You're going to want some things that can just go smoothly, that don't have to get violent. Because we're speaking about Austhay, not Mool, baby. That video was already made, and it was great. And I mean, even in non-fantasy settings, even if you're going to do sci-fi, you're going to do a setting without divinities, there's going to be big organizations that are really into the concept of trade. Every setting, even atheist settings with no actual divinities, every setting is going to have something that takes the place of divinities. I don't mean granting rituals and powers, but I mean there are things that are going to represent beliefs people have, whether those are big corporations in cyberpunk, whether those are, if you're running like a super hardcore gritty diesel punk game like nationalism, there's going to be something. And trade is a big thing people believe in. But anyway, let's get right into the meat of the video. So Austhay, he is the god of merchants, trade, commerce, copper, trade routes, roads, among other things. And keep in mind, in Theological, roads, that's a very difficult, time-consuming, and brutal endeavor. To build roads that's like a short road is like a 5-cycle commitment if you want the road to be like even semi-adequate. That's like the equivalent of a year. Like imagine in real life, you've been driving, you go by road work, and you're like, shit, when are they going to finish this road work? Usually it's like months or whatever. Like, no, like in Kvegathale, that could take the equivalent of a year, 2 years more. It's a big endeavor. So have a god around such a thing is huge. To be divinely inspiring that, to be protecting the road workers from bandits, because bandits are going to attack road workers. They have materials, they have valuable things. Maybe try to use, like, if they're short-sighted bandits, maybe they think they're going to like use the materials to build like a makeshift fortress, even though they probably don't know how to do that. But we're like, I can probably do this shit. And then, but they're still going to attack the road workers, even if they're not short-sighted, just to get free shit, tools and whatnot to then go and sell. And Austhay is the son of Damar and Igvale. So we're back to kind of normal divinities. We had Cinder before Agalma, but then before that we had Nithraxu and whatnot, and then a bunch of elder creators, as Nithraxu is an elder creator. So we're back to kind of a straightforward god of these two elemental forces, air and life, the elements of sky and earth. And so Austhay, like earth, he's this stable, tangible force in the world, but like air, he is formless and adaptable and sort of here and there and not restricted by any sort of one structural thing. He's a divinity of order, but of the, I guess, looser aspect of order. He is he's a divinity of some form of progress, of things being built up, of things moving and changing, but with a linear process by which those things move and change. Things don't just fall to chaos and anarchy. People slowly come around to certain ideas and make certain decisions based on their self-interest. So that's kind of how the air and earth interact, in my view. I have Austhay, even though it doesn't so much say this in the book, but in my games I have him having a very, very good relationship with his parent divinities, simply because that is obviously very, very profitable for him, to have earth and the sky just on his side. He can move about wherever he wants on the face of Kavagathael or above Kavagathael with no issue. Big Daddy Cassidy comes in and busts his shit up. But as long as Cassidy doesn't show up, Austhay is, for the most part, untouchable. There are, of course, other gods who might want to attack him, but he can move pretty freely due to being tight with his parents. And the things he views as sins are interesting too, because there's the obvious ones. Austhay views, if you don't get the better end of a deal, that's a sin. You've committed a great irreverence. Your foolishness and your incompetence as a merchant has offended Austhay. You steal from people. That's a sin. You are violating the legitimate rules of trade, the sacred, glorious scriptures of non-aggression that were passed down by the holy God of commerce. You are violating that non-aggression principle. But then also, what's another sin that Austhay views? Being conceited. And you may think like, well, greedy merchants, wouldn't they be, kind of conceited and self-absorbed? The sin, to be fair, is specifically, I believe, acting conceited. But if you think about it, arrogance and vanity and over self-confidence isn't going to do anything to earn you money. It's going to hurt you in the long run because you can't improve. You can't see where you're fucking up. It's easier to manipulate you. A humble merchant cannot be bought with flattery. You're going to be telling them like, well, you're a smart guy, you're a hard worker. I think we could come to a deal here. A deal with a guy like you. A deal with a guy like you. And the merchant's just going to be there like, politely like, well, I'm grateful. I appreciate the compliment. Really, I do. But I just don't see this deal working out as it is right now. Just currently the exchange rate you have just is not profitable for me. And I certainly appreciate the compliments, but if you're so confident in my intelligence, I would assume you would provide a better deal. I mean, this is not to be rude, but this to me seems to be obviously a poor deal. And the person was just flattering them. He's going to be like, well, no, I mean, I meant no offense. And the merchant's just going to be there like, no, I understand. I know you meant no offense. So it's being conceited is a sure way to get you manipulated out of your cash money, honey. And then also causing trouble for merchants. Obviously, Austhay views that as sinful because those are his chosen people, the merchants and the tradesmen who he has blessed to go about and do their business and to make great wealth so that they may bring it back to him and so that the world may keep on moving. So, what else needs to be said about Austhay before we move into the more abstract stuff? Well, I can say his agenda. Austhay's agenda seems to me to be to create a world by which the consensual, legitimate exchanges of trade rule supreme, and where he and his followers make an absurdly massive amount of profit, and where the forces of chaos and thievery and dishonesty are cast to the winds and discarded from the world. For Cassider may value Austhay's presence as an easy target, but Austhay does not value the presence of Cassider. Austhay has no patience for the thief, for the bandit, for the overzealous taxman, for the wild men in the woods, for the savages, for the hermits, for those who isolate themselves. He has no patience for these whatsoever, and in his perfect world they shall have converted, or they will no longer exist, for they are not profitable, and they oppose progress and order, the two ultimate aims of Austhay. Progress and order. Now I say ultimate aims, but there's of course one aim, Austhay's highest goal, and which is also considered the highest goal of any member of his church, the core tenet of what is valuable, passed down by the teachings of Jowf himself and confirmed by Maris of the Road, the chieftain of the Maris clan. What is above all things in glory and righteousness, so long as it is achieved through the honorable, legitimate means of the honest merchant? Prophet! Glorious prophet! Not Prophet, but Profit! Profit! Yes, let the money flow. Let the bedrock of copper build a baseline for your glorious wealth to grow, for it to give glory to Austhay, as upon copper will be stacked silver and gold and diamonds and jewels. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what form the wealth takes. It only matters how much the profit. You get a tool for 20 copper. You best sell that for 40 if you can. If you can. Do not be a fool. Do not be overconfident in your ability. Do not con people. Do not fleece people. Do not give people an unfair deal, or at least don't give them a deal so unfair that it will give praise to the con man. Because that's right. Austhay doesn't just oppose thieves, he opposes con men, the dishonest tricksters who sell false goods for massively overpriced prices. Austhay would much prefer, if you're going to sell something that's massively overpriced, if you think you can get away with it, if you're really going to try to do that, at least make sure it's an actual item of value and not literal bullshit. And oftentimes Castadorians will find a way to sell people literal bullshit. And that is something that Austhay greatly opposes. For as much as Austhay encourages the selfishness and the self-direction of the merchants and the ultimate profit motive that should come above other motives, he expects that to be done within an honest framework, which makes him such an interesting God, because you have aspects of him that can be seen as very, very selfish, very greedy, very bad, very wicked, this materialistic, money-grubbing, shekel hoarding, euro devouring, dollar delighting, whatever you want to call the currency, just swallowing all that up. But there's also that honest, straightforward nature to him, and that he does feel he's improving the world, and he does want to improve the world. It's just that comes second to his prophet and the prophet of his church, who he is loyal to, for they pay him to be loyal to them. Australians may often come across to other clerics as irreverent, because they don't seem to speak with Austhay in the same, "Oh, glorious Austhay, may praise be to you, and I give this sacrifice," and they may say, "Oh, my God is Austhay. He's an interesting God. Certainly, I've been benefited by him. The rituals that I've been provided due to my service to him is appreciated. Sometimes the service can be difficult, can certainly get stressful at times. People are like, so you're talking about your God? What the fuck?" But if you think about it, they're not less reverence. It's just that their reverence is expressed through the tithes they do and through the actual services they give for the temple. It doesn't matter how they talk about Austhay if they've just spent 8 hours working in the temple market, cleaning it, making deals there, making sure that the temple profits. So what if they're a little bit half-assed in their words later? Certainly Austhay doesn't love that, but that's something Austhay can let slide. This guy's a hard worker. Austhay knows where this guy's faith is. In fact, that 100 gold this man just put into the temple tithe bowl proves to Austhay exactly how faithful he is. He's 100 gold worth of faithful. And to a lot of other divinities, that may be an insult. That may be calling a cleric materialistic. But not for Austhay. That's exactly what he wants from his followers. Although maybe speak a little nicer about him, and maybe those merchants, if they continue to not be very salesmanly in their expression of Austhay, if they don't make him sound good in public, they might notice a few difficulties in their trade, a few words going around about them not being very trustworthy, and that can begin to become a problem that may be solved simply with even bigger tithes. So Australians as protagonists, first of all, I have played, not a follower of Austhay, but this would be the way I would kind of, as a PC in a D&D game once, I played a cleric of whatever the stupid Dungeons and Dragons god of trade was. He was the god of civilization too, but the cleric's name was Jackson Potter. And Jackson Potter was this very serious, bald man. He had a big soft spot. He was a pretty nice guy deep down, but very ruthless in his business, and a very serious man, very serious and thoughtful about what he was doing. And he was certainly a protagonist, and like people got in, they thought he was like this really nice, great, heroic guy. And then we came to a village, and they're asking for this aid, and he's like, "Well, what do you have to offer?" And they're discussing, and they're like not willing to give anything, and he's saying like, "I'm sorry, I can't afford to help you." I have to eat. I have investments that I'm trying to make. If you aren't going to offer me something worth risking my life for, I'm sorry. I feel for you. I'll make sure to get the guards in the nearby city. I will make sure somebody comes for you because I don't want a bunch of people to die, but I get paid for my services. People were very surprised, you can't say that. We're an adventuring party. And it's like, yeah, I travel around making investments and profiting off those investments. And on the way, I do jobs for people for money. And then ultimately we did come to a solution, which was, and of course, because an Austayan is always going to be able to offer a solution, especially a protagonist one. You're never just going to fuck off. You're going to find something that these people can give you. And for him, it was basically converting the village en masse. Basically, they all worshipped this god of trade, which if it were within the Ring of Fire, it would be Austhay. And it was pretty cool. So having these sort of friendly merchants who are willing to help, who are willing to do things for money, who will talk to you, who aren't going to cram their religion down your throat, because Australians are coming trying to make money off you. They're not coming in and being like, "Turn to Austhay now, you damned little swine!" No, they're coming up talking to you like, "Hey, what can I do for you? Oh, yeah, you just saw my holy symbol. Oh, I'm actually a priest of Austhay, but you look like you're maybe in the business for some weapons. Could I perhaps interest you in some of my stock? That can be very helpful." But I think the best way to use Austayans, and I'll get to the antagonist, but before that, I do think the best way is as a neutral party, just people in the world, just NPCs in the world. You find them in literally any city, in most villages. Not most villages, in some villages, in most towns. But you're going to find them. You're going to find people who praise Austhay. And it's just going to make the world feel like a very living world. Because you have these merchants going about doing their business, and you're going to hear things from them, and they're going to be a great tool for, kind of the drip, drip, drip exposition instead of just info dumping. If you have new players, you can have occasionally them talking to some merchant in a town. Maybe it's the same merchant from one town over, so they get to know him, and he's got info about what's going on in the world, about the way the world is, and just it makes the world feel alive. That there's this cult of trade. I just find it wherever I go interesting, and they're all moving about, and things are changing because of them. Think about what the Church of Austhay is doing here and there, how they're affecting the economy. Now, Australians as antagonists. Now, I'm strongly biased towards Austhay as a protagonist, but he can make a great, almost comical heel. And I don't mean comical in a bad way. I don't mean Muppet Dungeons and Dragons comical, but I mean realistic, like fitting in the world. Think about this, right? Let's say you're running within the Ring of Fire, but you're running it in a pretty classical way. You're adventurers. You're people who are traveling, who are getting up to strange businesses and going into the woods and coming into town and doing all this. You are not a variable that is accounted for in Austray's equation. You're not part of the sort of flow of trade. You're not part of the sort of circular motion, that river of trade that, you have people have goods, they bring it to other people, it gets traded, some officials tax that and it goes up to them, and then they put money into building roads and all this, and it just sort of goes around and around and up and up and up and grows because you're somebody coming in from the outside, and sometimes you're bringing in resources, but they can't rely on that. They can't factor that in because they don't know if that's going to be the case. But you are certainly taking resources out. You're taking jobs from the guards and from the mercenaries that the Austayan has hired. And that's going to make the mercenaries angry, although it might not make the Austayan angry. He got the work for free. But certainly Austayan mercenaries, which are going to be very real when you have just travelers coming in, killing the monsters, fighting the bandits, they're going to start to think like, excuse me, sir, are you sanctioned to do this? Are you an official mercenary? Are you hired for this? Because this is actually our jurisdiction, and we've got a contract with the local duke. And if this isn't, if can I see your contract? You don't have a contract? Yeah, so I think actually what you're currently doing qualifies as vigilante work, which is illegal in this area and goes against the contract we signed with the Duke. So you're going to have to leave, or I'm sorry, we may just have to deal with you. You're not going to leave? Gee, pal, that's really unfortunate. Guys kill this fucking bitch, and they come in on you with their hangers, and getting you. And you can have this big merchant who's annoyed by the way you're disrupting it. Maybe he's taking advantage of people. Austayans aren't con artists, but they'll certainly take advantage of people. Many of them view people, especially if they're Kalfars, if they're greedy Kalfars, they view people as a source of income, and they're going to use them that way. And Austayans are going to be supporting, what they're going to be doing? They're going to be engaging in slavery. They're going to be displacing and removing traditional populations if those populations can't, apply trade. What if you're just simple orcs trying to live out your life in the woods, but this woods is a profitable area, and you're not really being cooperative. You're not trading, so we're going to have to do something about that. What if you're just a hidden merchant trying to help people? You're not an Austhayan. You're a kind hidden merchant, and just through like almost predatory business means, through just being extremely ruthless, some asshole is just taking all your business because he wants the money. And yeah, ultimately the way you do business is better for the people you're dealing with, because you care about them, you think about them, you build these relationships. But this Kalfar has a better business model, and you begin losing money, and now you're getting destitute just because you treated the people you were dealing with like people and not a sack of coins. And so you can easily have this Austhayan heel, or even an understandable villain. He doesn't even have to be a heel, although I do find if you're going to make Austhayans an antagonist, I think it works best to make them a heel, because you can have that really scene where like people are talking about, like, think about what you're doing, think about the people you're affecting. I don't care. I don't care. I'm being honest in my business dealings, and I'm getting rich off this. I honestly don't give a fuck about a bunch of orcs who refused to do business with me, who weren't smart enough to realize how the world works, and now they got fucked out of their land, and I'm making money off of that, and I'm investing that money. So you can fuck off. I don't care, and you gotta have that greedy, yes, we've got to have copper. Yes, for copper is the baseline of all things. Oh, remember that, boy. Remember that, yes. You can get in. I have this, I haven't fully developed it yet, but I have this concept for an NPC, sort of antagonist style character who's an Austhayan. And he would be like a high-ranking Austhayan priest. And he might not be an antagonist, but the whole idea is he would be like extremely like heavily inspired by Ted Cruz. It would be very much like well, what we've got to look into is your profit margin. So kind of doing that crazy Ted Cruz, and he's really friendly, but he's kind of manic, and he's like. He's like smiling, nodding, and there's really nothing in the eyes but that like sociopathic, like, fucking get your money, But moving on, Austhay interacting with players. Austhay is a divinity who I can see very easily interacting with a party, whether it's a political game or an adventuring game or whatever kind of game you're running. I think it's very, very reasonable to assume Austhay would interact with players at some point in the game. There's the first way, in which is just through omens, which might be through the tin of the marketplace. You can hear, run from the thief, and you're getting out there before anyone else because you just swear you heard run from the thief, and you're getting your things together and getting out of there. Or in the sounds of copper, strange copper falling out in a strange way. And you look at that and you look at the copper coins and count them up, and you're like, it's like a good omen, like great prophet is coming. You're like, yes! It's this great moment, and you know how to take advantage of it because you've been praying to Austhay and counting the copper. Or, you're not even a cleric. You're maybe someone Austhay wants to work out to, wants to reach out to and draw you in, and you're called to by that. It's not a magical item, not this super incredible item that you see in the market. It's exactly what you need, and it's got the exact right price. And there's something about it, and you're looking at it, and you can see hanging from the top of the merchant's stall is a copper coin with the sandal, and you're thinking something about this. There's something about this really draws you in. You walk up to make that deal, and you're just afterwards left with this memory of that was a great deal. Usually I go to trade and it's kind of stressful. That was really smooth. I really feel like I've got this for a solid price. This is what I needed. This is what I needed. This is what I wanted. What more do I want? But then Austhay can also show up to people. And how's Austhay going to act? Well, Austhay is described as a lean, long-faced, unattractive man. So he's a simple kind of, almost normal guy, but not very good looking. But he's got charisma. Austhay should have an absurd amount of charisma, but it should be subdued. It should be subtle. Yes, he should awe you. He is a god. And in a way, not in the same way other gods do, but in a way, his very presence should almost demand your worship. You should stand in there, and this great sort of calm comes down, and this great focus comes onto him. If you've ever used nicotine interacting with Austhay, it's almost like the good part of a really intense nicotine high. You're locked in. You're okay, all right, what are we doing here? What's going on? You're focused and you're interested and you're extremely intrigued, but that dialed up to 11. He's going to speak in a calm and measured tone. He's not going to brook disrespect. Austhay will lay the hammer down at any disrespect because this is business. This is business, and I'm a god, and I'm the god of business, and I'm not going to have any foolishness here. But as gods go, he's going to be quite nice. Austhay is one god who's going to forgive accidental. Austhay is one god who's going to forgive accidental foolishness, nonsense, as long as it does seem to him to be the result of this mortal's idiocy. Austhay knows how to meet you where you are because that's the only way he's going to shake you down for your money without intimidating you or threatening you or stealing from you, which he would never do. You should always get something out of a positive interaction with Austhay, even if it's something small, because Austhay believes that the material things are holy. Copper, all that, trade goods, and to give up something to a mortal, to get much more, mind you, You're never getting the better end of a deal with Austhay. It will never happen. He's always going to get way more out of that situation than you, but you might not realize it because he's a god and what's valuable to him is different. So you might think, oh, I just worship. I've signed myself over to eternal worship to Austhay, and I just got this free sword. You didn't get a free sword. You traded in, essentially, your piety, your very praise throughout all of your life for this sword. And of course, if you violate that contract, Austhay is going to ask for that sword back. Or perhaps worse, because you violated a trade contract. But Austhay should be speaking sort of in this fashion. Yes. Hello. It's good to see all of you. I appreciate the prayers from those of you who have given me worship. And as for the rest of you, there's no need to fall to your knees. There's no need to grovel here. We can come to an agreement. I'm here because I've taken interest in what you're doing, building this town up. I really appreciate that. You're really building something up here. People are getting into the rhythm of trade. Some of my clerics have come, as you can see. I can see you are one, and you've invited them here. Again, I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. I think we're going to have some good business here. And then he can get a little bit more excited. And he said, and I have a deal for you. This is what I'm thinking, right? I bring in more of my faithful. We set up temples here, and we can have tithes going to those temples. It can just be one big temple, but I was thinking we could have a couple shrines just to really give people an active and diverse prayer life. Now, hear me out. I know I'm getting long-winded here, but I'm almost finished. What you can give in return and what I can give in return is as you're coming to these temples and shrines to tithe, we're going to have copper goods brought in en masse. Now, I know some of you, not of my faithful, might not properly understand the value of copper. Copper is abundant. Copper is cheap. Copper is easy to use, and it's a reliable material that won't let you down. We have enough copper, we can build up a baseline, and then we have what we need to get the silver goods, the gold goods, the iron weapons, the stone. We have a baseline to go off of. We have coins. We have basic trade goods that can build us up, right? I'm talking like a pyramid. Think of it like a pyramid. We're coming up from the base of copper up to silver, gold, other treasures, jewels, and then finally at the top, we have total market dominance. Now, I know some of that jargon might be a little bit over your head, so the last thing I'm going to say on this, what would you rather have? Would you rather start off with something great and never go farther than that? Or are you willing to start out at the bottom and with me, with my aid, slog all the way to the very top? I'll give you time to think. I'll be back on the 11th day of the next cycle. And of course, I give my blessing to you and everything you're doing here. You know, he's this friendly God, but when he gets angry, it should come out. He should be talking and, you cut him off or whatever. He notices a thief and he's saying, and this deal we're going to... And his eyes, by the way, he'll either show up with like just deep holes, like pits, or there'll be copper coins. So it's kind of scary. It's kind of creepy as fuck as you just... And imagine these copper coins here, and he says, I understand that there's chaotic forces at work here. This is disappointing. Either you're going to ensure that this place gets cleaned up, or I'm going to ensure that this place gets cleaned up. I will not brook disrespect to the process I'm trying to put forward here. Know this, mortal. The thief will only bring you down. You can go down with him, or you can turn away. Either way, I'll be rid of your sin, whether you get rid of it or I get rid of you. And then he's gone, and you're like worried. There's mercenaries coming, and then you're getting people, merchants are leaving your town. Like, nope, this is a bad town. It's run by criminals. Bye. And then after a while, raiders and whatnot start eyeing you because you just don't have the money to field your soldiers, or even legitimate forces, because, I mean, the god of trade opposes you. We should get rid of these people, you know. So it just creates this very interesting dynamic. And the last thing I want to say, because I know this video is getting absurdly long, as my videos always do, but I don't care. I like long-form content. Even though nobody else does, I like it. But on the Australians are going to build shit. And you're going to find Austrian temples all over. And it's very important to think about the cultural distinctions. Because as much as I've kind of played into the stereotype, not every Austrian is a capitalist. In fact, only the Calfars should follow anything akin to a modern economic standard. If you really want to build up that immersion, study how medieval merchants did things. And they had rituals. They had guild rituals, and you can apply that to the church. Study how ancient Roman merchants handled things. Think about viziers. Think about governors funding this temple. It doesn't have to be, we are of the private sector, and through Smithian economics and Austrian economics, as has been passed down by the glorious Mises, they're not going to be talking about that. Only an insane person, even in real life, would go around talking about Mises. Like, could you imagine the sort of deranged consumer you would have to be to, I don't know, tattoo his motto on your arm? Like, that would be bizarre. I could never imagine such a consumer mentality to play into that sort of nonsense. But in all seriousness, there's a lot you can do with Austhay. I could go on and on. In my opinion, he is the most, I shouldn't say the most, he is one of the most content-dense divinities. But as much as I just want to go on, there's a bunch of other stuff I want to add. I'm not going to. I'm going to end the video here, except for with another reminder that I still need players for that live game. Please, anyone who watches this video, I'm begging you. I'm not really begging you. I'm not that desperate. If the game doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I could run it with one player. But just check my Galma video in the description. I have some information for how you can reach out to me. And always have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves. Always oppose bad gaming. And remember, at the end of the day, the eudaimonia of this whole thing, as I'm going to pretend like I have a solid understanding of what that word means, the eudaimonia of this whole thing is immersion. It's ultimately what it's all about. If you don't agree with that, if you just want to go out and play your beer and pretzels games and your Muppets D&D, good luck, because you're not going to make it.